Learning about Titanoboa brings a sense of relief, knowing this colossal monster is no longer a threat. We feel secure without 50-foot snakes lurking, but could they still be out there? Could they have evaded extinction and be lurking in jungles today? Join us as we explore 12 shocking photos and videos that challenge the widely accepted narrative about the existence of this prehistoric serpent. Number 12. Nabao from Borneo. The discovery of the Titanoboa, a massive prehistoric snake that lived after the dinosaurs died out, has sparked intrigue and dread. This giant snake was only discovered recently in 2009 by a team of scientists in a coal mine near Cerrejón in Colombia. The fossils they uncovered revealed a beast that could grow up to a staggering 42 feet long and weigh over a ton. Based on the structure of its vertebrae, the Titanoboa belongs to the boa family of snakes, which includes modern-day anacondas and boa constrictors. But unlike even the largest anacondas today that reach over 5 meters long, the Titanoboa was an absolute monster. Its dark coloring likely aided its camouflage abilities, allowing this ambush predator to blend into the shadows and foliage of its tropical habitat. While Titanoboa existed over 60 million years ago in the Paleocene epoch, well before humans, that does not make imagining an encounter with this giant any less terrifying. The idea that a snake larger than a bus could be lurking unseen evokes visceral dread, and alleged modern sightings of massive snakes have led some to speculate whether Titanoboa might still be alive today. One such account comes from Borneo, where there is a legend among locals of a monster snake called Nabao. Stories say this snake stretches an unbelievable 30 meters or 100 feet and has 7 nostrils as well as a distinctive dragon-like head. While written off by most as a myth, a controversial photograph adds some credence to claims that Nabao could be real. The photo shows a giant snake-like form lying in the water, with a forest visible nearby for scale. It appears to be well over 40 feet long. Some speculate it could simply be a broken pipeline, others that it is clever digital manipulation. But witnesses claim the photo was taken by a rescue team helicopter over Borneo, lending the image more weight. Could Nabao represent a modern-day Titanoboa? Local beliefs state the giant snake is an omen signaling the apocalypse. If the photo is genuine, perhaps there is something to these ominous myths. Herpetologists calculate that to support its tremendous mass, a snake as long as Nabao would need to be almost 2 meters wide at its thickest. The snake in the photo does appear to have an enormous girth. The possibility remains that Nabao could simply be an outsized anaconda or another large snake. But with Titanoboa as evidence that snakes far larger than any living today once crawled the earth, the legends no longer seem so far-fetched. There are surely parts of dense, remote jungle across Borneo that remain completely unexplored by scientists. A relict population of Titanoboa, or some unknown gigantic snake, cannot be definitively ruled out based on current evidence. Those disturbed by such prospects will simply have to hope that they never have the misfortune of encountering Nabao firsthand. Number 11. Congolese serpent. Before Titanoboa's definitive discovery in 2009 proved giant snakes over 40 feet long inhabited Earth prehistorically, Western science knew little about massive reptiles of such proportions. Yet sightings and second-hand reports of arguably Titanoboa-sized snakes have cropped up sporadically in remote regions of the world since at least the early 20th century. It was 1959 when Colonel Remy van Lierde arrived in the Democratic Republic of Congo. He was deployed to the remote outpost of Kamina in the country's southeast to support ongoing operations throughout the Katanga region. One afternoon found the colonel returning from a reconnaissance mission aboard an Alouette 2 helicopter. As the nimble craft buzzed low over the extended green canopy, Van Lierde glimpsed movement from the corner of his eye. He signaled the pilot to double back as an immense snake slowly emerged from the sea of foliage, rising upright to reveal its full vertiginous height. Van Lierde and his astonished co-pilot gaped at a serpentine monster easily exceeding 50 feet, its triangle-shaped head topping half a meter across. With such dimensions, this creature is the largest snake ever documented. The serpent's upper body was covered in dark green and brown scales, while its underbelly was white. Colonel Van Lierde, amazed by the sight, immediately directed his pilot to turn the helicopter around for another go-by. The serpent responded by raising its head to an incredible height, at least 10 feet, as if warning of a coming attack. Recognizing the inherent danger in such a situation, Colonel Van Lierde made the quick decision to retreat, directing the pilot to return to the base as soon as possible. Colonel, thankfully, was not one to let such an extraordinary encounter go undocumented. Using the resources at his disposal, he expertly used an onboard camera to capture images of the giant serpent, securing evidence of its existence. As an aviation expert, he was good at guessing sizes from height, and he believed that it measured 50 feet at least. If we believe his estimate, even of half that length would dwarf the largest scientifically documented snake on record, a 25-foot, 300-pound reticulated python found on Indonesia's Sulawesi Island in 1912. What then was this absolute leviathan that Van Lierde witnessed rising above the jungle canopy? Suspecting his account might be discounted without corroborating proof, the colonel tasked covert operatives still active throughout the Civil War-torn country to gather intelligence on the elusive mega-serpent. These efforts unearthed a litany of supporting accounts from native testimony, indicating not merely a single isolated incident, but an enduring regional icon deeply rooted in local mythology. Number 10. Skin from Maine. In addition to sightings of live specimens, alleged evidence of Titanoboa has also come in the form of skin casts. In August 2016, near a quiet Maine suburb, a massive shedded snakeskin measuring over 11 feet in length was discovered lying on the banks of the Prehistoric River. The skin's sheer enormity provoked authorities to cordon off the area for examination by wildlife experts. They soon confirmed it belonged to an abnormally large snake that locals had reportedly sighted on multiple occasions and nicknamed Wessie, after the nearby town of Westbrook. Enthusiasts pointed to telltale signs on the skin, indicating the mature snake could potentially stretch up to 18 feet. That would make Wessie bigger than any known wild snake in North America save the indigenous reticulated python, which maxes out around 20 feet. But an escaped exotic pet seemed improbable given Maine's frigid winters. So might Wessie represent an unknown native species that has somehow escaped scientific documentation until now? Not so fast, cautioned skeptical cryptozoologists. Upon closer inspection, the skin showed no signs of decay you would expect from a freshly molted specimen. This, plus its conspicuous placement near a populous area, raised red flags. Some argued the skin had likely been imported from another continent and intentionally planted as a hoax. Still, cryptid enthusiasts held out hope. Rumors had persisted for years around Westbrook of an abnormally large snake matching Wessie's description. Sightings date back to the 1970s, long before the skin's discovery. Its sudden emergence now, after decades of reports, seemed to corroborate native accounts rather than discredit them. An independent researcher doing analysis preliminarily traced the skin back to Colombia, once the homeland of Titanoboa. Could Wessie represent a long-lost descendant of the mighty prehistoric serpent, somehow surviving undetected in North America amidst ever-encroaching urbanization? Once again, folk tales predating modern science give us pause. In this case, centuries-old Native American legends tell of a devastatingly giant snake known as the thunder snake. Number 9. Titanoboa from Russia. Purported sightings of living Titanoboa are reported not just in remote tropical regions, but also seemingly in the unlikeliest of places. In 2014, a video surfaced online taken in the Russian city of Samara, showing an enormous snake crawling down the brick exterior wall of an apartment building in broad daylight. The video went viral, with many Russian viewers insisting the snake was far larger than any native species there, and must be some kind of escaped python or even a surviving prehistoric monster. The climate in Samara, located on the Volga River over 1,000 miles northeast of the Caspian Sea, would likely be far too cold for a reptile evolved for the tropics like Titanoboa. Yet that did little to stem the public's speculation about the snake's titanic size. Researchers who examined the video, however, pointed out several suspicious factors. For instance, the apartment residents somehow failed to notice an 18-meter python crawling past their windows. Russian officials identified the videographer behind the compelling footage as one Dmitry, a self-proclaimed specialist in 3D rendering and digital manipulations. Within short order, the truth became evident. Dmitry confessed to orchestrating an elaborate ruse via sophisticated CGI wizardry, his fictional behemoth bolstered by forcing visual perspective against the vertical rise of the high-rise facade. The once compelling video was conclusively debunked as an ingenious hoax. It shows the enduring influence of Titanoboa on imagination, and how ready people are to believe the giant snake could turn up alive in unexpected corners of the globe. Each new alleged sighting validates excitement and anxiety over whether the mega serpent still lurks undiscovered somewhere out there, no matter how improbable. Number 8. Yakumama. As likely the greatest biodiversity hotspot on Earth, the Amazon rainforest has inspired many legends of frightening beasts lurking within its nearly impenetrable foliage. Indigenous peoples have passed down accounts for centuries of 100-feet anaconda relatives they dub Yakumama and black boa, capable of toppling whole trees in their trails. These epic snakes featured prominently in local folklore long before Western science conceived of snakes beyond 50 feet as fantasy. In recent decades, cryptozoologists have cataloged strikingly consistent giant snake observations from remote Amazon villages and penned-in scientific outposts. Though easy to dismiss as imaginary or exaggerations of ordinary wildlife, characteristic details in the reports intrigue open-minded researchers. If megafauna, considered extinct worldwide, can survive isolated in jungles, as some claim, why couldn't analogous giants linger forgotten in the Amazon basin? The mountain gorilla remained unknown to the Western world until 1902, the Komodo dragon undiscovered until 1912, and the giant panda as late as 1928. Even the fabled Titanoboa itself was only first uncovered in 2009. Who is to say a handful of specimens did not remain hidden in some steaming primordial jungle, sequestered from all human contact? To conduct his independent research, American cryptid adventurer Mike Warner embarked on a journey along jungle waterways from Peru to Guyana. He interviewed locals and recorded testimonies swearing enormous dark-hued serpents overtook riverboats and communicated with deafening hisses. Despite the sparked Titanoboa interest, researchers note that the climate of the Miocene when Titanoboa thrived resembles today's Amazon perfectly. The remote rainforest could be a final holdout for the massive snakes. Seeking what locals call the Mother of Water, Warner's multiple expeditions have discovered signs of gargantuan snakes like shed skins, nesting sites, and furrows through heavy vegetation. But capturing definitive proof on film, while alone against predators including jaguars and hostile tribes, proves profoundly challenging. Still, Warner's dedication stems from the believability of Amazon legends combined with Titanoboa evidence that foot snakes once dominated South America and could have endured in this last wild refuge. Number 7. Titanoboa in the park. Videos claiming to show Titanoboa in unexpected locations spark waves of excitement among cryptozoology circles. One such video, finding its way online in 2016, depicts an ominous snake-like shape swimming under a pedestrian bridge in Big Cypress National Preserve in Florida. The giant serpentine form weaving slowly through the water transfixes viewers, with its apparent massive size far exceeding any local alligators or Burmese pythons that stray into the Everglades swamp. When the video first surfaced, Titanoboa experts scrutinized the footage for any sign of forgery, ready to debunk another hoax, and they called it fake. Park officials stepped in to investigate, measuring as best they could from the video and probing sightings in that area. As excitement dimmed, their conclusion emerged that the biggest snake in the park stretched no more than 16 feet. This fit with profiles of some outsized Burmese pythons rangers had troublesomely noted in the park before. The confused identity of the snake could a microcosm of the larger Titanoboa phenomenon, speculation escalating as imaginations take flight, then rational facts dragging reports back down to reality. Still, a 16-foot python, able to swallow adult humans whole prowling Big Cypress, strikes sufficient fear on its own. And somewhere in remote jungles, an unknown snake just as staggering as Titanoboa could be awaiting discovery. Number 6. Snake by the Amazon. Out of the many alleged Titanoboa sightings from the world's tropical regions, certain clips compel expert analysis based on apparent legitimacy. One such video circulated heavily online in recent years, after originating from rural regions along the Amazon River in northwestern Brazil. Shot by a local fisherman from his small motorboat, the shaky handheld footage shows a gigantic snake lying half-submerged along the muddy riverbank. While distance camera zoom distorts scale, visual markers like shoreline trees estimate the leviathan's visible length at over 40 meters. This far eclipses dimensions of even record-setting anacondas that weigh 500 pounds and measure some 16 feet. Experts also note as the snake slopes from the shoreline into the water, its trailing body bends deeper towards the center of the channel and continues out of frame. This hints at a possible total length rivaling claimed sightings of the fabled Yakumama of Amazon legends. Debates rage over factors like whether the video was staged, wrongly exaggerated in size, or shows a surviving super anaconda relative rather than specifically Titanoboa. But a key detail leaves skeptics grasping when totally dismissing the snake as ordinary: the head shape. Reptile specialists describe its comparatively small skull and rounded snout as quite snake-like, contrasting the large, angular heads of Amazonian crocodiles that can reach over 20 feet long. While probably an elaborate hoax in the eyes of many critics, to adventure-seeking herpetologists, the video represents hope more snake species of titanic proportions lurk hidden in jungles like the Amazon. They envision perhaps a lone post-breeding adult Titanoboa emerging for its brief yearly feeding. Though its kind numbers too few to sustain a population, as long as safe habitat endures, does a handful of the greatest snakes the world has ever known endure as well? The prospect compels cryptid hunters to continue trekking the rainforest in search of the crown jewel of Discover's live Titanoboa. Now it's time for today's subscriber pick. Recently, an unusual image has surfaced, capturing the attention of intrigued onlookers. The size of the creature in question appears to surpass that of any ordinary snake, dwarfing the human standing nearby in a striking comparison. We don't know much about the photo or where it came from, but it has us wondering, could this be a Titanoboa? The colossal dimensions depicted raise questions about the potential survival of Titanoboa, considering that no recorded python or anaconda has ever attained such lengths. What are your thoughts on this captivating image? Could the Titanoboa have endured extinction and found refuge in the uncharted corners of our planet? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Number 5. Fish eater of Uttarakhand. The tropical climate prevailing across much of the Indian subcontinent closely resembles the hot, humid environment that once homed Titanoboa. Home to over 500 types of snakes, the region's dense jungles teem with serpentine life forms perfectly adapted to their steamy surroundings. From the king cobra to the tiny Brahminy blind snake, barely exceeding 4 inches, India's snake diversity spans the spectrum. But currently, something beyond ordinary is happening there. Beneath the soaring Himalayan peaks along India's northern border, a remote village wrestles with the collapse of an aquatic bounty they relied upon for ages. Whereas the Goriganga River once provided ample fish to feed the community daily, nets now frequently return empty as stocks mysteriously dwindle. Fishermen's daily catch dropped from over 100 kilograms to under 5, no matter how far up or down the river they cast their nets. The collapse mirrored itself across all regional waterways. Aquatic wildlife monitoring stations documented a plunging 94% reduction in only a few seasons. Tribal councils convened to demand explanations. But when exploratory trips and dams built to trap migrating fish fail, growing despair fosters dark rumors of the true culprit. Some elders privately invoke Naga, a colossal serpent deity from Hindu and Buddhist folklore known to gorge on entire schools of life at once. Mythic accounts describe Naga spanning well over 50 feet, requiring ritual tribute to temper its divine hunger. In the absence of such offerings, panic spreads that Naga has awoken from a long slumber far below in tunnels bored through the mountain roots. Its unquenchable appetite as the literal foundation supporting the villages since antiquity must be honored, or suffered, as the increasingly desperate people decide how to placate the unseen menace. Because what else could feasibly consume entire schools of fish by the tens of thousands virtually overnight, while somehow eluding all visual confirmation, save the briefest glimpses? Certainly, no known natural predator resides in the area that remotely approaches the dimensions described, nor demands massive marine biomass be sacrificed to sate its onerous hunger pangs. If primordial snakes like Titanoboa somehow still persist, their cold-blooded metabolism perfectly suits the subtropical climate along India's northernmost border. A seasonal drop in temperatures could send such relic giants into hibernation until warming coaxes their immense bodies into action once more. Perhaps these dire rumors carry warnings of a real yeti in the shadows that, for all of humanity's dominion over nature, far older and larger forces still shape reality when stirred again by climate change. Whether folklore or currently unclassified species, any apex water predator of tremendous scale would wreak havoc on landscapes unequipped to handle its reawakening. Number 4. Giant snakes in mythology. While Titanoboa was only recently unveiled to modern science through fossil analysis, clues that enormous snakes rivaling dinosaurs dominated prehistoric Earth hide in humanity's oldest stories. Ancient mythologies across cultures contain unmistakable references to snake deities of staggering size and power. Though often symbolic, certain legends strongly indicate such mythic serpents stem from ancestral memories of Titanoboa transmitted orally over millennia. Texts of ancient Sumeria referenced Mushushu, a primordial dragon said to lack rivals due to a sprawling body without end that swallowed land and sea alike. Chinese lore warned of the great white serpent believed to span over 300 feet in length and require years for its full profile to snake past any landscape marker. Persian folklore describes Aji Dahaka, a colossal king cobra dating to before mammals that effortlessly consumed even adult cows whole within its dark and fathomless jaws. But the closest analog to Titanoboa found in legend comes from Norse mythology. Dominating their vivid mythology stood Jormungandr, the Midgard serpent said to encircle all lands while grasping its own tail in its mouth. According to legend, the mighty Thor once embarked on an epic quest to confront and kill the gigantic beast he encountered while fishing the seaside. But after a furious battle, the thunder god failed to best the epic Leviathan. Their mythic struggle is immortalized in early Nordic artworks, including 11th century rune stones. These ominous tales likely served to dissuade maritime exploration across the frigid Nordic seas. But might they represent ancestral confrontations between early seafaring Norse and relic survivors from the Paleocene epoch, when snakes grew big enough to dwarf modern whales? Intriguingly, during the warm epochs that facilitated 40-foot Titanoboa, seas lying between Greenland, Iceland, and Norway remained relatively temperate year-round, thanks to the warming Norwegian current flowing from the Gulf Stream. Waters likely teemed with fish and marine reptiles, upon which Titanoboa could have feasibly fed. Perhaps a handful of specimens discovered the Nordic fjords, lakes, and coastal shallows offered sanctuary as planetary cooling decimated their tropical kin over successive ice ages. Immortalized through creative exaggeration into folkloric krakens and sea serpents, rumors of their historical reality echoed down the generations, if diminished from fact into fantasy. If nothing else, composite myths of mega serpents indicate snakes more than any creature have struck a deep-seated awe and terror across the human psyche since our earliest eras. Titanoboa fulfills that primordial fear of the unknown superlative threat, made better than any discovery before. It epitomizes the core lesson myth often imparts. Even the greatest beasts that ever existed inevitably fade from might, and shall again. Number 3. Giant Snake Rock. An eroded geological enigma nestled amid sheer limestone outcroppings in Thailand's Phu Wa Wildlife Reserve has ignited spirited debate over whether mythic beings could ever transcend into physical form. At first serendipitous glance, the landmark called Giant Snake Rock traces the unmistakable silhouette of a sinuous reptile frozen mid-slither across the terrain. Jagged sandstone plateaus sprout from the foundation that then slopes into eroded, crumbling depressions in sequence. This down-undulating topography irresistibly evokes the image of a petrified snake god mid-metamorphosis. While no scientific evidence indicates authentic fossilization, the site has attracted attention as a candidate for the mythic nucleus behind indigenous snake entities still revered in current traditions. According to local legends, a monstrous snake emerged from the surrounding wilderness during a violent volcanic eruption sometime in the misty past. Villagers watched awestruck as flowing lava rapidly entombed the towering Titanoboa, fossilizing it in a place overlooking the valley it once terrified for all posterity. Interestingly, geologic evidence indeed confirms the rock formation underlying the snake facade consists of igneous granite and ash thrown skyward by explosive volcanism. Tectonic collisions fused the ejecta into porous tuff over successive eruptions spanning millennia. However, park officials attribute the uncanny serpentine topography to far more mundane processes. They propose centuries of extreme temperature shifts from day to night slowly expanded and contracted the sandstone at different rates. This resulted in massive fractures that, when widened by ongoing erosion from seasonal monsoons, evoke a hypnotic scale-like texture to human perception. While that explanation satisfies geologists, the breathtaking sight still fuels visitors' wonder at the intersection between myth and reality. Number 2. Monster snake in Kataba River. North America possesses its lore of elusive river monsters with reputations tracing back generations in both indigenous and early European settler accounts. One such legendary beast, known as the Kataba River creature, inhabits the snaking waterway demarcating the border between North and South Carolina, leaving a legacy of frightful mystery. The Kataba River flows some 220 miles from scenic Appalachian mountain foothills through the growing metropolitan hive of Charlotte before emptying into the sprawling man-made Lake Wateree Reservoir. But before dams and irrigation canals tamed the Tempest Rapids, legends warn it harbored a sinister, unnamed inhabitant prone to dragging victims into its depths. Oral traditions passed down among the native Catawba people reference various supernatural serpents and leeches on the scale of treacherous sea monsters. Petroglyphs etched into riverside boulders even depict outsized snakes and lend possible visual depictions, implying more than imaginary figures. Tales of capsized fishermen and scouting parties disappearing near tumultuous shores fit with a colossal river predator unrecorded by history. European frontiersmen and colonists pushing gradually inland likewise brought back scattered eyewitness accounts that fed the folklore of an elusive river monster. German engineer John Lederer's journal from 1970 recounts a Virginia tribe gesturing wildly over perceptions of a venomous, silver-scaled serpent longer than a tree haunting upstream channels. Settlers recast indigenous stories through the biblical lens as the devilish Edenic serpent's local incarnation and omens of deadly sin. While written testimony tapered off by the early 19th century, the region's uncertain past ensures mystery still slithers below the waves for some. Yet sporadic sightings persist even into modern times. Social media today tunnels fresh eyewitness accounts of something vast, rippling the high water surface with purposeful force before submerging into untraceable depths. Like this recently taken grainy footage of something mysterious lurking in the water. Perhaps most unsettling, the ongoing mystery fails to rule out whether such accounts reflect distant memories of a terrible apex aquatic hunter like Titanoboa that indeed once inhabited southern swamplands and now only persists as cautionary tales of nature's impersonal menace. Number 1. Ogopogo. Half a continent away, Canada harbors its cultural analog to Scotland's elusive Loch Ness monster in the form of a legendary lake inhabitant dubbed Ogopogo. By one account or another, visitors to British Columbia's Okanagan Lake have described sightings of an unknown aquatic creature for over a century roaming its serpentine 50-mile aquatic highway. Amateur investigators who flock seeking evidence often invoke ties to local First Nations folklore of a serpentine water spirit called Naha-a-ik, fostering lasting intrigue. Recently, a strange photograph was captured, adding another layer of mystique to the ongoing narrative surrounding Ogopogo. The image, shrouded in controversy, has sparked renewed interest and speculation about the existence of this enigmatic creature. Like accounts of Nessie spanning ages through medieval Celtic history, Ogopogo chronicles intertwine with the mythos of indigenous lands along Okanagan Lake for millennia, before cities like Kelowna carved up the wooded shorelines. Oral records of the native Okanagan or Silks peoples depict Naha'aitk not as a flesh creature, but as a sacred guardian entity ensuring balance within the aquatic and terrestrial worlds occupied by man, wildlife, and spirits alike. Totemic petroglyphs etch the symbol of this spiritual overseer across generations of stonework. When Europeans penetrated indigenous territories through fur trading and missionary work, however, they co-opted and contorted the complex Silks cosmology into more familiar folklore formats through wild exaggeration. The nuanced metaphor of Naha'aitk underwent sensationalist distortion from a benign spiritual embodiment of water into a literal lake monster said to demand live sacrifices. In the absence of zoological evidence, paranormal seekers hold that, be it flesh or phantom, some marquee animate force inspires continuous sighting reports with thematics too consistent to write off as collective delusion. Perhaps through Ogopogo, the true lesson manifests not of any carnivorous relic reptile, but humanity's tendency to warp unfamiliar concepts through limited worldviews, unconsciously replacing spirituality with sensationalism that overshadows truth under myth. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.